right, so you've done the hard part and you found the one person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. Congratulations. But now you have to find a ring, and not just any ring. It has to be the ring, the one ring to rule them all. It can be overwhelming, I understand, because it's, such a big decision, not only because it's just a boatload of money, but also like you want your partner to love it. You don't want them to hate it and thereby hate you. Because as we all know, this ring is a representation of your love. And let's be honest, what if it's just not good enough? I'm just kidding. I was just kidding. Was that too real? But honestly, if the person is a good person, the ring, the wedding, it's not going to be the be-all, end-all. They're going to love it no matter what. But I understand that you want to do your best, and so I'm here to help you. So today we're talking about pair engagement rings, and I have 7 design ideas and 5 tips. So let's get started. Design 1 is the single stone. Picture 1A, vertically oriented single stone. 1B, you can see that it's horizontally oriented. This single stone, it's like really nice, it's simple. If this person is like a very simple, elegant, classic style person, the single stone is a good design option. If you compare between 1A and 1B, 1B, it's, that asymmetry gives it a more unusual and edgy look. 1C is designed by Thelma West. She's a Nigerian designer and she works in London. Notice the prongs. So in 1B, you've got, just normal straight prongs. And in 1C, you've got these tapered prongs, which are kind of like clawed. And that's, it's extra work to do that, to file them down into points. And I think it gives it a more artistic look. 1A, there's a couple things that I like about it. They really protected the point, because the point of the pear is the most vulnerable spot of the stone. So I like how they protected the point. I also like that it's a very low setting. The stone isn't sitting very high from the finger. So that brings me to tip number 1. Get multiple views of the ring. So if you look at 1C, the top view, it just looks, just like 1A pretty much. But if you look at the side view, you'll notice that it's like pretty high up, sitting away from the band. So that, possibly it could snag on clothes. So if, you're the type that wears a lot of like delicate, like holey, lacy stuff, maybe something that sits so high, you might not want to go for that, and maybe you want a lower setting. All right, design number 2. Halos. So a halo is a tiny set of stones that surround the main stone. And the nice thing about these halos is, depending on how many rings of halos that you have or how large they are, you can either get like a little pop of, a little extra bling, or you can be just like dripping in diamonds, like 2C. So, you've got 2A, 2B, 2C. These are all essentially like the same design. I do want to point out that 2B, you'll notice that the ring, the band, it splits into 2, and we call this a split shank. So in case that's something you want, now you know what it's called. Tip number 2, if you do get stones on the actual band, don't go all the way around the band, because if you ever need to resize it, that makes it really difficult to get it just right if you go all the way around. And also, like those stones, all those teeny tiny stones, they can, pop out if it become loose if you're, resizing. Look at 2C. 2C, we don't have one main stone. If you'll notice, that center stone is actually made up of a bunch of tiny stones. So that could be a benefit if you can't afford like a huge one stone. You can get the same look by compiling a bunch of tiny stones. All right, tip number 3, the angle of the halo. So I've got 2 of pretty much the same exact ring. One is blue and one's purple. And compare them. Look at the side views. The blue one, the halo is flat, but the purple ring, the halo is at an angle. And the angled one, in my opinion, is better, because then you can see that halo from all different angles of the ring and not just the top view. So it'll look good from even the side as well. And it's actually harder to do at an angle too than just flat like the blue ring. Design number 3. The single stone with a tiara. I actually don't know what this thing is called, but it is, just this addition of extra stones or design around the round part of the pear, which we call the head. And if you look at 3A, we've got this little, tiara that gives a little extra flair to the pear. And if you compare it with 3B, the tiara is like a lot more extended, right? And it goes out a lot further than 3A. So a little suggestion for that one, for me it's a personal taste, but 3B, I feel like that tiara, it's just like it extends far and it's flat. So it's going to get caught on things. And I'd rather have something that wraps around the finger instead of just like sticking straight out flat like that. 3C, you notice that we've got like the single stone with a halo around it, and in addition to that we've got 2 tiaras on the top and the bottom. So this is actually 3 separate rings, and we call these stackable rings. 3D, on the other hand, instead of having these tiaras as separate rings, they're actually combined into one ring, and we call this an enhancer band. And you can notice that those 2 bands are actually made into one piece with those little extra pieces of metal, combine those 2 tiaras into one ring. So if you're the type of person that maybe you don't want to have a bunch of like separate or like a plain wedding band, and you'd like it to just like enhance your existing engagement ring, that could be an option for you. All right, moving on to design number 4, the triple stone. This one, I don't have much to say about it. It's a pretty classic design, so if you're more of like a traditional person and you want that, like traditional classic look, this could be a good design for you. Moving on to design number 5, the chevron. So a chevron is kind of this V shape, and you'll notice in design 5A, we've got the point of the pear going into the chevron, versus in 5B, it's got the head of the pear going into the chevron. There are two different designs. If you want something that kind of has like 2 pointy ends, maybe go for 5B, but if you want like just 1 point, maybe 5A. I do want to point out that in 5A, the chevron is very flat, and if you compare it to the band of 5B, the chevron actually twists and it reorients. So that's a really nice detail. Obviously, it's a lot more work. 5C, the chevron is open, and I kind of feel like this one looks kind of like angel wings. 5D, this one's also another open chevron, and this is actually part of the Disney collection. I think it's like Maleficent or something like that. I do like that it has this over and under around the main pear stone. And then lastly, we have 5E. 5E, this is such a gorgeous ring. This one's designed by Angie Murray. She's Egyptian and has a store in New York. So 5E and 5B are both designed by Angie. It's just gorgeous. Again, it's got like that reoriented chevron, and 5E also has kind of like a tiara on the top. So we combined the tiara with the chevron. All right, this brings us to tip number 3, which is the aspect ratio. Aspect ratio, you compare the length of the pear to the width of the pear. And so I've got 2 images here. The first one, you can think of it as they maintained the length, and so with an increased aspect ratio, you're kind of making it skinnier. You're making the pear skinnier. So on the other hand, a fatter pear has more presence, right, and more weight. But then the skinnier aspect ratio, like a ratio of like 2, say, the pear will feel skinnier, more elongated, more lengthy, and like slim. On the other hand, in the other picture of aspect ratio, you can keep the width the same and instead just elongate the length. So those are 2 ways of thinking about the aspect ratio, and that can really influence the look of the design, any of these designs that we've talked about so far. Before we get into the last 2 designs, number 6 and 7, I just want to say that if you're finding value in this video, please like and subscribe. Design number 6. This one is called Toi et moi, and it just means you and me. If you're familiar with Megan Fox and Machine Gun Kelly's engagement ring, early 2022 by Stephen Webster, a trois et moi ring, which just has two main stones nestled right next to each other. Same with Ariana Grande and Dalton Gomez's engagement ring from December 2020. We've got the pearl and then the oval diamond. These are just two stones that are like sitting right next to each other. So this is called Toi et Moi, and it's just, you know, you and me. So I've got two designs here for you in the pear shape. 6A, the points of the pears are overlapping. And then in 6B, they've overlapped even further, so now it's more like the heads of the pears aligned with each other. I'd also like to point out that in 6A, we have a combination of yellow gold and platinum. So you can mix and match these metals. You don't have to only stick with one. You can intentionally use those different colors of metal in the design choice to like separate or put little details and have that difference in color. For our last design, design number 7, we have 3 gorgeous ring designs by Lien Hein. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's from the Netherlands, and he works with twisted gold. So he's like very familiar with just like the feel and the bending of the metal. So he exclusively works with gold. And so we've got 7A, 7B, and 7C. These are all 3 separate rings, and you've got like kind of this like freestanding, free-floating, elongated, high aspect ratio pair. 7C, what I really like about it is it kind of reminds me of a knot. So like tying the knot, you know, like weddings, like it's very nice. So that's the end of our designs, and I have just 2 more tips for you guys. And the tip number 4 is to not be afraid of color. My engagement ring was actually a colored stone. It wasn't colorless, it wasn't a diamond. I chose a colored stone, and it offers a lot more options for you. If you're, you know, somebody who likes to be a little bit more unusual, a little more unique, don't cut off all of your options. Don't count out colored stones. Tip number 5 is to consider the setting, and this is going back to design number 1 that I had mentioned, like the setting of the center stone being kind of high above your finger. So, you know, those settings, they can like catch on things, your clothes. This brings us to the end of Ring Envy. I'm Sharon, and see you next time.